Hello, and welcome to my seminar on one made-up fact about every British Prime Minister up to World War I. Now, it has recently come to my attention that most people don't seem to know anything about the pre-war Prime Ministers, myself included. So, I have done the bare minimum research to educate you and myself on who these guys were,
who are these niggas,
and why we should care. Without further ado, let us commence forth. Britain was formed 23 years ago, when there was a big hole in the ocean and God, who's actually a random homeless man I met in Glasgow, decided his beautiful earth needed 12,000 barbershops, Gregories, and a gambling shop for every one of his creatures, mainly beavers because they can't be left to their own devices. The job of Prime Minister was actually created because the king had a really nice cheese and onion sandwich with a little bit of salami in it as a treat, so he was going to be quite busy for the next 700 years. To rule his country, at this point filled with gnomes, orthopedists, and pretty much nothing else, he cut off one of his 3 toes and planted it in the ground. Thereafter sprouted the first primal minister, named so for the era he came from. His name was Robert Wall from Poland, and it is where this great story begins. Robert Wall from Bulgaria was actually the longest serving Prime Minister, mostly because no one else wanted to do it. His political career started by winning an election, although it wasn't exactly fair, as the only people legally allowed to vote at this point were all frying eggs. Easter Sunday was about 2 weeks away. When I say no one wanted his job, I was not lying. Several people walked into his house one day. All of them came out in cardboard boxes, which was especially astonishing because cards from the cardboard was all being used to write letters to Santa Claus wishing for a better Prime Minister this October. Spencer Compton was a strange pick for Prime Minister, as he was from the micronation of Compton, known for its high exports of hard liquor and soft liquor as well. A bad combination if you're running a country. How is liquor hard? It's made out of wet. Compton's notable achievements in office include dying. His out-of-office achievements include coming back to life out of sheer joy of finding out he was no longer Prime Minister. Not to be outdone in the alcohol department, PM number 3, Henry Peltzam, reduced the price of gin by accident as his premiership saw the massive rise in British grain and, instead of doing the normal thing, like turning grain into gravy or gradual incline slopes like other countries, our wonderful countrymen decided to turn that shit into hard liquor, baby! So Mr. Peltzam decided to restrict alcohol vendors, and this may have had positive social impacts, reducing the debilitating alcoholism crisis like the nation has never known before, but it put a sour end to one of the greatest benders this island ever went on. Rest in peace, cheap booze. We will always cherish the memories that you gave us.
I kill people for fun.
Mr. Peltzham's brother took over the role after his death, a Mr. Thomas Peltzam, but he pelted eggs instead, and he was a nepo hire, so I don't respect him. William Cavendish was, as his name suggests, Prime Minister for about as long as I spend in a Toby Carvery each week, a whopping 226 days. His term was ended quickly because he executed Microsoft Bing for... I don't actually know why. It's probably because it's the worst search engine behind the Wii Shop channel. Mr. Cavendish is actually a record holder for the most frisbees caught in his own mouth on Wii Play, released in 2007. Tom Man Peltzam is back! I hate this guy for no reason! John and Stewart was actually one person. Unfortunately, he came from Scotland, so he had to walk all the way down the Highland Way to get to work in the morning. Give this little man a slice of black pudding and a low-calorie cigarette. Thank you, Mr. Potato Stewart. Actually, he ended our war with France. He will actually not receive a Diet Coke and will instead receive a swift death. In order to stop the Scottish influence ever reaching Westminster again, new Primary Minister George Greenvillage told former PM John and Stewart to suck an egg. He's still sucking it to this day. When dealing with Spain and France in foreign diplomacy, George Greenville deployed the 2010 Type 45 HMS Dauntless warship, equipped with enough rounds to turn Versailles into a smouldering pile of horchata. George Greenhero often won the diplomatic encounters. Charles Watsonian went forth without worry as Watsonian's really impressive working accolades were included. winning at absolutely nothing.
You lose!
The microstate of Compton had now become the macrostate of Compton, and they were selling more booze than us because we were using our grain to do stupid things like making food and McDonald's Happy Meal toys. George III turned him into a red splodge on the carpet and paid the cleaners 12 pence to clear him up after, which was kind of rude, everybody thought, but he was sure to go back and tip them a further 17 pence. Thank you, George. William Pitt the Elder is the first guy on this list who I had actually heard of. He was actually a member of the evil shadow government and had been secretly ruling the country of Kevin Hart and J.D. Weatherspoon since the days of William Cavendish in 1757. However, he was kicked out of the secret society as he didn't pay for his TV license. Like any good politician, he dodged taxes. So, he rolled up his sleeves and decided to run the normal government instead. Now in the big seat, he put an embargo on corn from the macronation of Compton, as he got a bit of poppered corn in his teeth once and couldn't get it out. To this day, he's still trying to get it out, much like John and Stuart continued to suck their eggs. Augustus Fitzroy sounds German, which is especially weird because in 1767 the German states were actually down south in Italy and part of the Roman Empire, this one riddled with holes, leading it to sink soon after. This guy had several accomplishments, chief among them resigning after a year and a few days. Next! Frederick North spent much of his time in a fierce battle with his evil twins, Frederick East, Frederick South, and Kanye West. However, Kanye was killed by the being known as Yay! So at least he can sleep soundly at night tomorrow and the next 3 working weeks. Unfortunately, he was woken up early by the sound of sheepskin drums being beat, yelling turkeys, and Willie Pitt screaming about the corn still stuck in his teeth, as the macronation of Compton had decided they want to be their own country, separate from the UK. North devised a plan and sent 3 of his best baseball players to whack the rowdy bunch of Comptonites. They all returned in cardboard boxes. Now today we recognize Compton as a real country, although you can't spell country without Greg's, and they don't seem to have any. Curious. Charles Watson is back! And by back I mean we see the back of him as he was here for like 2 seconds. William Petty served a petty amount of time, so I gave up trying to think of things to say about him. William Cavendish Bent Inc. was the Duke of Portland, rival village to the fledgling nation of Compton. For that reason, the Comptonites arrived and took him to Thorpe Park, and then to the evil room where evil things are done to you, and that concludes his 261 days in office. William Pitt the Younger is my goat. Do you know what this man did? He put taxes on windows and used the money to fight the French and steal their Egyptian artifacts and let everyone know that Napoleon Bonaparte is a sad little lump. And that is actually the only fact in this whole video. Henry Add and Subtract added money to the game, a new feature we were sorely fiending for as a species. He then subtracted reasons not to beat the ever-loving hell out of Napoleon with his new friends Austria, Russia, and P-Russia, Russia's evil penis clone. However, he spent too much time in Europe, got hooked on the lifestyle of cheap booze, cheap cigarettes, and not working, so he left for a 12-year bender in Benidorm. He's still partying away to this day. Legends say he forgot all about Britain. Pitt the Younger came back and he was like prime LeBron. Click to add text. William Greenvilla should be familiar to all of you eagle-eyed viewers, as he's the botched clone of former Pine Minister George Redvilla. He was out on a vendetta-fueled mission to actually do something while in office. He did not. Besides, abolishing the slave trade though, which I suppose is pretty good, whatever. William Cavendish Bent Incorporated escaped containment in Chessington World of Adventure, and now he's wreaking havoc everywhere. Somebody stop him, please. This was the mother fronter who instigated the Insular Penis War with Portugal and evil Portugal. I am scared. Like many other prime ministers before him, Spencer Perceval was plagued by the issues of continental Europe and, importantly, the Napoleonic Wars and the new country of the United States of America. Due to troubles surrounding the regency of Prince George, heir apparent to the alien George III, Perceval found himself in the unenviable position of de facto head of state during one of the most politically turbulent and claustrophobic points in decades. The regent George went to great efforts to subvert his father's rule and lead the country himself. However, the prince's fiscal responsibility was not becoming of someone of his status. He frequently spent large amounts of money from the country's own coffers in order to finance his lavish lifestyle. In fact, it was this irresponsibility which led to him having to marry his own cousin, Princess Caroline of Brunswick, to appease Parliament, who would then repay his debts. Prince George was known to dislike the ruling Tory party, which Perceval unfortunately found himself to be a member of. The threat of a regency rule from Prince George not only jeopardized his current position but most members of his government. During this time, the United States was threatening Britain's growing prospects in North America and their Canadian colony. The tensions were rising to what could potentially turn into another war, something Britain could scarcely afford given their troubles on the European continent and with the growing empire of Napoleon Bonaparte, who appeared to be growing his influence steadily year after year. Despite all the challenges faced during his premiership, Spencer Perceval's time in office was ended abruptly in May of 1812, not by the myriad of threats to his country, his party, and his continent, but by one single man, acting alone, who carried out the first and only assassination of a UK Prime Minister. His name was John Bellingham. His act was not of protest, political upheaval, or rebellion. Rather, it was a petty act of revenge after the perceived slight he suffered, after being imprisoned in Russia, unjustly in his eyes, and demanding compensation from the government, which he was not granted. Now, John Bellingham is not to be confused for famous basketball player Judas Bellingham, who did spins so good he could make chickens dance the samba. He's actually a good friend of mine and will now narrate the next part of this video. Hi, I'm Judas Bellingham. Robert Jenkinson was a guy. Thank you, Judas. Robbing Jenkins' daughter was so phenomenally pissed at the macronation of Compton, he started a massive war with them 3 goddamn days into his premiership.
3 days!
He was frothing at the mouth to kill those Comptonites straight out of the door. Menace! You know who else this guy hated? Napoleon Bonaparte, and a mere 2 years in, at 1814, the guy was defeated finally after a coalition of European and Europoopin forces cornered him in a bathroom and forced him to sing 99 Red Balloons in Estonian whilst they sprayed him with water pistols, and from that day forward they called it the Battle of Waterloo. However, Robert Jank was facing a problem as now he had hundreds of vets left over from the war with nothing for them to do and not enough paper to print out their veterinary licenses. You know who else this guy hated? People. He sent his small army of vets, now working as a kind of police force, as the heads of hiring and firing had a severe bout of dyslexia that week, and they went to go and put down a protest of people asking for something. I don't know what they wanted, and guess what? He didn't either. Lots of people were killed. Not good. George Canning was known for his love of tins, which is where his name derived from. Now, if you have a large building that puts things in cans, such as sea urchins, pig brains, or cream of tomato stew, it's called a tinning factory, after our late Prime Minister, who died before he could even open his second can of tuna. I feel like I should mention now that technically the king is still head of state, as well as body and mind of state too. But he doesn't want to be, because he does yoga classes and plays Animal Crossing, so the nation needs a buffer between his brain and body, riddled with long, graphic, explicit escapades with women he is not married to. The Primarch Minstrel is the head of Parliament, a big frat house in the middle of London which they cannot afford, so it's paid for by their parents. They go there and drink lots of beer and river water and yell at each other, and then they play Super Smash Bros. Melee. Their greatest player in the House of Commons so far has been Arthur Wellesley, who won EVO in 1828. Frederick John Robinson is a name that is hard to make fun of because it sounds like a mix of every other name before his. He also wasn't fun for everyone else in Parliament because he preferred Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which the king took as a personal attack like the well-adjusted and mentally stable adult he is, and had him jettisoned into outer space just 131 days into his premiership. He was replaced by 1828's Evo winner, Arthur Wallpaper. The first Duke of Beef Wellingtons, which he actually didn't like because it had mushrooms in it and he doesn't like vegetables. Despite serving for 2.5 years,
150 years!
he didn't really do much besides refusing to live in the customary Prime Minister's trap house, number 10 Downward Street, whining that it was too small. Number 10 Donkey Street is actually a non-Euclidean abode, boasting an internal surface area of at least 2 meters and a pretty cool cat. Chicken Wellington did eventually move into number 10, as his house was having an extensive work done to it. That being, he was having a DDR machine installed in his front room. You will see this man again! Charles Grey, also known as Earl Grey, which is where we get the coffee from, decided to redistribute parliamentary votes so more than 2 people could be allowed to vote. It was now a whopping 3, a huge change to a system that had been in place now for just over 100 years next Tuesday. Before we continue, this video was sponsored by absolutely nothing! Thank you for watching. William Lambshank was born in a hole in the ground. I'd like to read this exchange had between himself and his secretary regarding the offer he'd received to form a new government and become Prime Minister, if you will. I think it's a damned bore. I am in many minds as to what to do, his secretary said. Why damn it all, such a position was never held by any Greek or Roman, and if it only lasts 3 months, it will be worthwhile to have been Prime Minister of England. By God, that's true, I'll go! 3 months later, he resigned in disgrace. Don't worry though, he'll be back to resign in disgrace again soon enough. Arthur Wellyman is back! Oh wait, no, sorry, he's gone again. Never mind. Robert Potato Peel formed a government, then lost an election, but only resigned as Prime Minister after finding out that being the minority leader of a parliament means that you're not allowed to have ice cream or lungs or nice things. Get out! 120 days poorly spent, bozo! William Lamb is back, baby! Although he was involved in several scandals between his premierships. His wife had an affair with CEO of a failing restaurant chain, Lord Byron, who, and I kid you not, this guy also had affairs with his mother. Lord Byron had an affair with William Lamb's wife and mother. Jesus, this man is cock of the century.
Yeah, the fact checker 3000 here. That part about Byron sleeping with Lamb's mother is entirely made up. I don't know where I got that information from.
Hey, shut the f*** up, you clanker! I'll f***ing beat your f***ing ass! The f*** you f***ing However, not to be outdone, Lamb went and had his own affair, like he was trying to get on the leaderboard or something. It even has a cartoon of it right here. Here's some other interesting stuff that I found. He used to spank upper-class women and whip little orphan girls he had taken into his house. What? This man is P. Diddy! Dig up his grave now and lock him up. Honestly, this guy is probably the most interesting guy in this whole video. I'd suggest looking him up yourself. Anyway, he did things in government and then pissed off the new Queen Victoria and was sent to a farm upstate. Goodbye, Effrey Jeptine. Robert Applepeel is back again. Now he wants to let people know that he means business, so he makes money a thing. Up until now, people in Britain had to trade cans of Stella Artois for things like sofas, headphones, and spicy Doritos. He also made incoming taxes a thing, where he taxed you for your income, which is kind of gross, honestly, especially considering the fact they'd not yet invented running water with which he could clean himself with afterwards. Nevertheless, the money raised from this siphoned semen was enough to end Britain's tariffs on things. To the best of my knowledge, Applepeel didn't have a secret dungeon where he did things, unlike the last guy, for what that's worth. John Russell gave £340,000 to the Catholic Church of Ireland. Ireland said thanks for the money, dummy, and proceeded to ghost all his texts and phone calls, and, like any self-respecting woman, broke up with Britain a while after. With no more money, the Prime Minister had to reverse the incoming tax and give people back their what he had taken from them. Moving swiftly onwards. Edward Smithing Stanley couldn't keep his hand out of the cookie jar, and didn't just double dip, he triple dipped. That's very unhygienic. In his first government, he spent about 375% of his time and energy trying not to get kicked out of government, which he was in less than a year later. Bozo! George Hamilton Gordon Freeman led a ragtag group of misfits in a coalition government who all disagreed on everything, so they relied on a 13-sided die to decide what they did at any given moment, including matters of whether or not they brushed their teeth. Yucky. During his premiership, the crime war broke out against someone. Crime, I suppose, although this war necessitated an alliance with France. I can't even look at this man anymore. Next! Henry John Temple Run just so happened to be in office when the godforsaken alliance with the Franks was ended, along with the crime war. I don't know what he actually did, so I'll look into that. Someone made an explosive and tried to use it to blow up the Emperor of France. That's more like it. But then he got scared like a little baby and made a conspiracy to murder abroad illegal in Britain. Boring! Next, please. Old smithing table is back, and this time he actually did something, that being the end of the East India Company, which is fine, but I heard nothing regarding the end of the South, West, or North India Companies. Go home! Come back when you can last more than 2 years, bozo! Oh, and look who else is back. Henry John Temple Meade's train departure. You wanna know what he did this time? Something, probably. He was a cheerleader for the southern states of the macronation of Compton during their uncivil war, where both sides refused to wipe their hands after going to the lavatory. Disgusting! Although he wasn't actually in favor of slavery, he just wanted the rowdy bunch of wankers to destroy themselves for his amusement. Can't blame him, really. John Russell's back again, but much like Ireland, Parliament is not picking up to answer his calls, so he shall now be incinerated. Say goodbye, Mr. Russell. Third time's the charm, baby. Edward Smithing Salts is back for the third time, and this time he spent a lot of time looking at textile factories. One of them had an ethereal, otherworldly moth inside of it. Fancy that. Benjamin Disraeli, much like Pitt the Younger many years previous, was ruling the country for the past couple of years as the secret shadow prime minister. He got kicked out of the secret cabal, however, as it came to light that he, unlike the rest of them, didn't have a fancy title like Earl of Cheesebury or Viscount of Counting or something of that nature, so he was demoted to regular prime minister as punishment. They also liked to sneak into his room at night and nibble on his mattress from time to time. His first premiership had him passing laws considered non-controversial, like banning public executions. If you're upset that you don't get to watch people have their heads removed from their bodies in person, blame this man. William Ewart Gladstone was very glad. Smiley face. As he was now Prime Minister. However, no sane person enjoys being the primordial mink, so he was slapped upside the head with a cane made of pure concentrated tungsten, so now he's William Ewart's Sadstone. In his new alter ego state, Sadstone inflicted as much sadness as possible everywhere, by banning peacetime flogging in the military, which is annoying because I need that to help get my chimney done. The best I have as a replacement is sending one of William Lamb's secretly bred chimney goblins up there, but they're all getting stuck, so I have to cook them, and they're giving me an upset stomach. Disraeli is back again, and he's passing more non-controversial laws, like allowing employees to sue their employers in civil suits, which is good for everyone else except me because I have at least 6 dead goblins in my chimney. Shit. Sadstone is back again, and this time spreading even more sadness. He ordered the bombardment of Alexandria, a wee bit excessive given they've already had their internet shut off by Google, but whatever. Then he just decided to take Egypt for fun. And I mean for fun, as they had nothing in Egypt at the time except for a big pile of sand, a couple of Bass Pro Shops, and one fish, although he did have about 12 grams of protein in him, so I'd say it was probably worth the annexation. He also liked to detain people in sticky toffee pudding like some perverted baker. It was around this time in history where holding people for questioning without trial was considered a baller move. Sadstone would later be drafted to the NBA Lakers alongside Pitt the Younger from years previous. Here's an evil-ass picture of him. Robert Gascoigne Cecil III Marquess of Salisbury Stakes is not a real name. But it's okay because he didn't lead a real government. He preached and practiced laissez-faire government. For those of you who don't know, that means kicking up your feet and doing fuck all! He was dragged from office kicking and screaming 220 days in. Bozo! Sadstone came back for 177 days to get on his hands and knees and beg Ireland not to leave and take the fridge and the Xbox. Then he left again to go and eat a caniac meal at Raising Cane's with fat-free coleslaw. Gascoigne Cecil invalidated my previous remark about him as he served 6 years as Primarch Minister this time. Here's the fun fact right here. He spent £1 million billion trillion on new naval gear such as a gun, 2 guns, a foot-mounted concealable gun, a giant rubber ducky, goth people, another gun, and he nicked a few chips off of Sadstone's caniac meal. Sadstone decided that he wasn't going to end on a loss, so he came back for a 4th goddamn term as pernicious minister. This time he billed Gascoigne for his chips that were nicked and took back the $1 million billion he spent on the rubber duckies, which were now afleet with an absentee alcoholic Grand Admiral. Sadstone was very sad as he was very old now. In fact, his age was in the double digits. The oldest person to ever occupy the role, besides Mr. Lambshank previously, as he was an evil demon sent from the future by Puff Daddy Sean Combs and Jeffrey Epstein. I don't have to talk about him anymore! Yippee! Nobody liked Archibald Primrose, and the only reason he was made Prime Minister is because he was the only person in his party who would be willing to lick the Queen's feet if she asked. Not that she did, or at least that we know. She spent most of her days miserable as her husband died, and he was known to be a good footlicker in his time, maybe even a feet licker if the situation called for it. The leader of the frat House of Commons, William Harcourt, threw empty cans of beer at Primrose's head and made him sing 99 Red Balloons in Estonian. He also had a stupid name, there's a fact for you. Gascoigne is back for a 3rd time, and now he's really up the creek. Britain had spent the last few decades telling every other European and Europoopin nation to suck eggs, but the cockerel had stopped laying by this point, and everyone was starting to resent this tiny island filled with people with stupid names like Edward Smithing Salts, William Sadstone, and Robert Gascoigne Cecil III, Marquess of Salisbury Stakes. They could smell blood, and bile, and vomit, and lots of other nasty things because they hadn't been cleaning their rooms for the longest time. But forget about Europe, because that was just me rambling for no reason. Down south in Africa, there was a new discovery underground: gold bars, a strange kind of chocolate bar that's taste is almost impossible to describe. Unfortunately for Britain, there was a large camp of wild boars guarding it, so we started what was known as the Second Boer War. The first one happened off screen. It's actually a bit of a plot hole the writers added by mistake. They had a day off when they were making this season, and Gascoigne was finally going to get his last day off, as everyone was sick of killing boars for no reason, and they already had enough bacon from the first war, so he was booted out, finally.
Get out of my house!
Arthur Balfour marks the end of these reoccurring side characters, as most everyone from here until the present served once, said Jesus Christ, and ran away from the office of Prime Minister with great haste. Arthur bought some land. That's about the most interesting thing I could find about him. Henry Campbell Bannerman is named after a soup and a type of calligraphy. That should tell you all you need to know about him alone, but I'm gonna tell you more because I can. He sent the House of Lords to the Shadow Realm to sweep the floors of the Great Burger King in the sky because they provided no value to British politics besides having large wigs and falling asleep during debates, or just straight up not even showing up to their jobs, because why the hell not? But he was forced to let them keep a complimentary napkin and allow them to chime in every 15th hour in Westminster for about 46 seconds, only during off-peak times though. And the last British Prime Minister elected before World War I was a strange fellow named Herbert Henry Asquith. He had a harem of beautiful women he kept close by. A little too close, as he somehow was unable to see the massive German Navy parked outside. Someone went in his room whilst he was doing things I'm not allowed to say on YouTube, and showed him that the European and Europoopin continent was once again having a massive war. Asquith spun a board and picked out his favourite countries and joined the war on their side, which was strange as it included France, but I'll pretend like I didn't see that. And with that, Britain becomes involved in World War I, and I can finally finish this long-ass video. Subscribe for the part 2 that I'm never making! Also, thanks for 150 subscribers. Bye!